You know you done goofed when the person who was tasked with beating you up, and who wasn't even in the name of the game, got more famous than you did. When the original Donkey Kong arcade game was released way back at the dawn of time, who would have thought that the character without a name, unless you looked at manuals and whatnot, would end up the Mickey Mouse of video games? Mario took the broken industry by storm when Nintendo delivered a vital wake-up call to the video game industry with the original Super Mario Bros. Now, whatever happened to Donkey Kong? Well, at the time, his name went on to sequels to the arcade game, but he was always cast as a villain or as a damsel in distress when the shoe was on the other foot and Mario decided he needed to become the kidnapper for a change. It would be this way for many a long-ass year, until the Super Nintendo rolled along and some random game company called Rare face-planted onto the scene, changing it forever. At least until they were sold to Microsoft in 2002. Enter Donkey Kong Country, released in 1994 and featuring 3D graphics, an rarity at the time. Despite being forgotten by Mario, Donkey Kong never forgot, as he decided to also star in a platformer, though it is a fair bit different than the plumber's outings tend to be. But come on, a platforming jumping game where he plays a big dumb gorilla? Who's gonna play that? Shigeru Miyamoto probably said when they put the game on store shelves, personally. Well, I know I did, and I'm sure a lot of you did too, but the question is this, was he right? Was Shigeru Miyamoto right when he said these games weren't good, despite him correcting himself years ago? Let's see if we can prove him wrong. Much like almost all the games of yesteryear, Donkey Kong Country doesn't have a story to speak of, just a setup. Donkey Kong has his own island somehow, kinda like Skull Island I guess with King Kong, and these evil crocodiles called Kremlings mess his place up and steal its bananas when he's sleeping or something. I don't know. Look, it's not very deep. The kooky Kremlin clan invaded and you gotta stop them. End of story. I think we can all relate to this story on some level. As mentioned before, and as you can see from the video, Donkey Kong Country is a platformer, meaning you run, you jump, and you land on platforms. I could end the review there, what more do you want? Well, you start the game controlling the Big King himself and can find his little buddy Diddy Kong locked away in a barrel marked DK. Break the barrel and you get Diddy, who acts as a second hit point. Yeah, it's one hit, one death, like you'd expect, and you can swap to Diddy with the press of the select button. Like other platforming games, you have enemies to fight as well, and you do so by jumping on them or rolling into them. You roll, or cartwheel if you're controlling Diddy, by pressing the Y button, and this is used not only as an attack, but also as a way to propel yourself forward. This is where we get into one of the bigger aspects of what makes Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong. As mentioned, it's hard to really say what makes Donkey Kong better than other platformers, at least in the early stages. Donkey Kong Country are more technical platformers, I guess, where your skills are put to the test in different ways than games like Mario. Donkey Kong is more precise platforming and also tests your reflexes in different ways, and the roll jump is one of those ways. To execute a roll jump, you simply do what it says in the tin. Jump at the end of a roll after rolling off the edge of a platform. It isn't overly tricky to perform, but you can easily flub it in the heat of the moment, causing you to plummet to your demise. One other gameplay element that makes it different from Mario and other platformers are the animal buddies. Scattered around specific levels are crates containing an animal buddy, ones that the levels are designed with them in mind. They don't play completely differently or anything, but they do offer various buffs. Rambi the Rhino, for example, lets you break through secret rooms and kill enemies just by running into them. Also scattered around the levels are both bananas and letters that spell Kong. Bananas act as coins from Mario. Collect 100 and you get a life, and the letters give a life when all are collected. Often they are in the line of fire, but sometimes they are hidden decently. You can also swap the Kongs, like mentioned before, and this is because both behave slightly differently. Diddy is lighter than Donkey Kong, so he can jump slightly higher, but he can't kill all the enemies Donkey can with a single jump. Thankfully, this doesn't come into play too often, meaning that bigger isn't always better, and Diddy is pretty much just a second hit point, but it can come into play here and there. Other than all this, gameplay is pretty reactionary and easy to pick up and play, but can also be pretty difficult, so be prepared. Unfortunately, you won't have to get good for long, as the game is incredibly short, only lasting around 2 to 3 hours. Now, I know most games were short back then, but Super Mario World was much longer and was released before this. Now, one of the biggest things that makes Donkey Kong is level gimmicks. There are quite a few different gimmicks and they very rarely repeat. Sure, there might be another minecart level, but you can be sure that it won't be the same and will function entirely differently. This keeps you on your toes as you never know what a level will bring for sure until you enter it, but keep an eye on the names as they very clearly give a hint. That level isn't called Blackout Basement for no reason after all. There also exist underwater stages and they act exactly as you'd expect, like garbage. To be fair, they aren't that bad, but they are the most underwhelming levels in the game. Unfortunately, these are the stages that repeat the most and some of them have the worst gimmicks in the game. Thankfully, they don't do that much damage as the stages remain a joy to play. They take the typical style gameplay and turn it on its head. Adapting to the gimmicks is key here. Of course, it wouldn't be a video game without any secrets, and Kong Island has plenty of them. Each level has plenty of bonus rooms to find. Some are hidden behind breakable walls, which you break with barrels or a rambi, and some are hidden out in the stage somewhere, like in pits, which has to be a cardinal sin. The bonus rooms themselves are varied but all simple. Some have you jumping on barrels in order to stop letters spelling Kong in the correct order. Some have you jumping on claptraps, little croc enemies that snap at your heels in order to collect the bananas they drop, and some have you shooting out barrels. Regardless of what they are, they don't tend to have amazing rewards. They can only be bananas, a Kong letter, or an animal buddy token. Bananas and letters are fairly obvious why you want them, but the tokens are a little different. Collecting 3 tokens brings you to a bonus game, no matter where you are in the stage, and forces you to run around as a specific animal buddy to collect tiny tokens. Here, the tokens act as bananas and give you a life when you collect 100. Hidden in each one is a secret spot that'll multiply your total, meaning you can get a ton of lives this way. The bad thing about them, other than how tedious it is for something you get plenty of in-game, is that they always drop you back to either the beginning of the stage or the halfway barrel. This is incredibly annoying, so I just ended up avoiding them. Regardless, there are tons of bonus rooms hidden across the game, and finding them all on a stage awards you with an exclamation point at the end of the stage's name on the map, and you also won't get scolded by Cranky at the end of the game. It goes without saying, but I never really paid them much mind. Of course, Donkey and Diddy aren't the only Kongs on your side. There exist 3 other Kongs around to help you in various ways. The 3 are Cranky Kong, as mentioned before, Candy Kong, and Funky Kong. Cranky Kong will give you tips and point you in the direction of bonus rooms, so in pre-internet days, he was pretty helpful if you wanted to get the most out of the game. Funky Kong is also useful for getting the most out of the game as he lets you travel between the worlds you've unlocked. In my most recent playthrough, I never went to see this guy once. The poor dude was left hanging. Now, Candy Kong is the Kong you want to see. She is Donkey Kong's girlfriend and is always ready to let you jump in her barrel to save the game, and she'll even let Diddy join in on the fun. Suggestive jokes aside, Rare knew what they were doing. I swear, the majority of Rare were furries. Shouldn't be complaining though, they knew what they could get away with, but that is a story for another time. So back in 1994, Donkey Kong Country was a big deal as it was made using 3D models digitized for the Super Nintendo, and it looks it. The game is gorgeous for Super Nintendo and it aged extremely well. If it could be smoothed out for HD, it would still look great as an indie game released today. There are plenty of enemy types that are animated well and it all has a charm about it. The backgrounds are beautiful as well, but the foreground can get in the way of gameplay, which is a second cardinal sin Rare committed here. Donkey and Diddy are also well animated as well, each of them having their own personality and animations for completing and failing bonus rooms and idle animations. So much effort went into the visuals of the game, and they look the part, even if I anticipate them affecting the length of the game. Look, I'm always wary of beautiful games before the current generation, as they tend to be shorter or more simple because of it. The visuals are not the only thing that's amazing, the music is as well. Mr. David Wise himself did the soundtrack for Donkey's first solo outing, and boy did he deliver. There is a reason this guy's considered a legend in the industry, and this game is what really got him attention. The tracks perfectly match the theme of the stages from the bright and vibrant jungles to the dark and damp caves to the deep, deep sea. Every track is stellar. The only complaint is that there are a finite amount of them. Each theme tends to only have one track linked to it. There's no actual flaw I will give to the presentation or audio in this game. From the time it was released to the modern day, this game is still masterfully presented. Rounding out this review, we'll talk about the bosses, and I'll be complaining about them. Quick and easy review of them is that they suck. Going into more depth, I can see why they suck, as what would you do in a game that plays this way? But it still has to be said that they do. The bosses tend to just be larger enemies that have patterns that get more intense as the fight goes on. There is really nothing to say about them other than that they are all about memorization, especially the final boss. Of course, the final boss is one I'll give the pass to. King K. Rool is a timeless fight, as bullshit as it can be. I always say a good game will be a good game forever, and very few games show that quite as much as Donkey Kong Country. Sure, Super Nintendo games tend to hold up better than the later generation games, but you can't deny just how much Donkey Kong Country holds up. The beautiful visuals, fun challenging gimmicks, and amazing music all combine to keep the game going strong even to this day. What, like 28 years later? That is a testament to the A-game Rare brought on to keep themselves in Nintendo's good books. I'm going to give Donkey Kong Country an excellent 9 out of 10. Now, if only there was a Donkey Kong Country 2 to keep this going. Wait a second.